today we are going to have a short conversation with Daniel Lamas, who has been playing the viola for quite a long time with Ensemble 212. Hi, Daniel.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How's everything?
Great. It's so good to see you.
To see you too.
Okay, so to start it off, can you give us a brief self-introduction?
My name is Daniel. Hi. I've been living in New York since 2011, and I've been playing with Ensemble 212 since either 2011 or 2012. So quite a long time, 8-9 years, and many wonderful concerts, with Ensemble 212 and with Yoon-jae, and so many memories. So it's basically it's my favorite group to play with in all of New York.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, so you are originally from Chile, right?
Yeah, I was born in Chile, raised in Miami. So I did all of my musical training in Florida, and then I won a job in an orchestra in Chile when I moved back, and then came to New York and finished up my studies in Paris at the Paris Conservatoire.
Oh, I had no idea. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I did.
Very cool. Can you speak French?
No, I used to be able to a little bit before, but it's been 5 years since I was in France, and I can kind of understand the news in French a little bit, but if I try to speak, it's really bad. One of my students, his dad's French, so the little boy tries to speak to me in French during the lesson, and it's embarrassing sometimes.
I dream of studying music in France. It's
wonderful. Paris is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful place to study. It's inspiring. I mean, it's just so different having New York and Paris.
Right.
Even the way people play the viola, the violin, the piano, it's so different in both places.
Oh, really? How so?
It's just the actual way of producing sound on the instrument, just the touch of the bow is very different in Paris. Like I noticed in New York, players are a little more intense, a little more in the string. Mm-hmm. And in France, the playing was beautiful and intense, but not quite as aggressive as one could say.
Mm-hmm.
Here a lot of people. There's a lot of very loud, intense playing. It's how string players play in New York. But it was just such a formative experience to bring back with me.
That's great. Okay, so going back to your earlier training, when did you know or when did you realize that you wanted to be a musician?
Well, I started late. I started playing the violin about age 11, almost 12. So I was in the 6th grade. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know you held it under your chin. Like I just thought it was like, I don't know. I went into the orchestra in middle school and I picked, that was like that one, the double bass. My mother played double bass and I thought it was just too big. So I didn't know what a viola was, and I saw the next best thing was this little thing. I knew that it was a violin, but I'd never seen one before. So I just chose it randomly, and then and then I started playing, and I realized I wanted to be a professional musician. Not even when I was in college at first. I was always going actually on the track to becoming a lawyer. Even when I did my part of my undergrad in Florida, but I was music and going into pre-law.
I see.
But when I switched to viola is when I realized there's nothing else I wanted to do. I fell in love with the viola and I said, you know what? No law, no nothing. I just want to play viola. That's when I knew. I was about 2021 when I knew I wanted to be a professional violist.
That's quite unusual in string world, isn't it?
It's very late. Most people know when they're, when they get into their freshman year or even in high school, they know they want to be professional musicians.
Right.
But so for everybody, it's different. That's why when I have students who are, 25 and they studied something else and they're excellent, I always tell them, and maybe in 10, 15 years, you could become a professional. You could get bored of being whatever, finance or whatever, and you could just play the violin for a living. It's never too late to pursue what you love.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so what was what inspired you to dive into music? Because that's a commitment. That's a scary commitment to make in life, you
Oh,
know?
it's terrifying, yeah. I guess because my parents both studied music in Spain.
Mm,
They both lived in Madrid. And my dad was a guitarist for the longest time, and until he moved to Miami. So I was always around music, around opera, everything. So it was a very musical household, and that inspired me to take up an instrument. But they never pushed me. They could have done what most parents do, and at 7 years old, hear lessons. No, they never even when I was dabbling into choir and recorder and stuff. They never even they were completely hands off,
mm.
until I chose the violin. Even for a couple of years, they were hands off until I told my dad I may want to go to college for this. And then he would practice with me very
Oh,
intensely. Yeah,
wow, that's great.
he was my metronome. Yes,
Wow.
you missed a note.
Did it influence your relationship with your parents?
No, no, not at
No.
all, not at all. They're still my biggest fans, and my biggest critics too. So I
Mm,
always say, like, who am I when I have a concert coming up or anything? Who am I most terrified of playing for? My parents, because they're the most honest people when it comes to that, and they know. One can hear somebody who's a friend or not musically trained can say, "Oh, it sounds good, maybe not as good," but my dad will know exactly why it's not as good.
mm.
And he's brutal. He doesn't hold back. So it's terrifying, but it's also good. It's good because if they approve of what I'm playing, then I know I'm on the right track.
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah. It's always good to have a trustworthy, you know, person for the feedback and.
yeah, almost even to a greater degree than a lot of my teachers were, because as a teacher you're in charge of a person's career, but like once a week you can still reach out to them, but also you know they're not your responsibility outside of after they graduate. Like, you wish them luck, and you can contact them and you have a good relationship, but they're not your lifelong person.
Right,
And your family is, so
right. Yeah,
it's
that's
good to have that.
right. I know you are a very active and passionate string teacher in New York,
Yeah.
right? Are you a strict teacher? Like, is your teaching style influenced by your father?
It's actually influenced by my teachers, who were all basically Israeli.
Oh.
So my teachers were all Israeli and or American Jewish. So still very Israeli, very.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher would scream at us in Yiddish, and you could hear through the double doors her screaming at the kid before you in Yiddish. You knew you were going to have a bad lesson. Um, and my teaching style is a mixture of everybody. My teacher, Miss Kopek, who was a very strict Jewish grandma, and very technical. My other teacher, Karen Dreyfus, who was like a loving mother, but she would still let you have it. And all the musical ideas in one lesson, you would absorb so much. She would shape your playing, all of that. My other teacher, Daniel Lamas, also, he wouldn't even play in the class. He would whistle and finger his arm and would use, imagery and metaphors, and your playing would blossom in one lesson. So taking all of that transformed me into becoming the teacher that I am. And of course, my teacher in Miami, Michael Klotz, who was like my big brother, he basically raised me as a player. He got me at 16, and then he transformed me. In 5 years with him, he transformed me. He literally, and to this day, I still have such a good relationship with him that, we, I can still talk to him, and he's still like a big brother. So, I mean, I have so much to thank all my teachers for, especially during my formative years, especially, like I said, Michael, who literally formed me as an artist. He would come over and have dinner with us, and then I'd have a lesson, and then, we would talk about it, and he'd call me sometimes when I had a concert or something or audition. He'd call me, he'd be like, "Dude, Danny, are you practicing?" "No." "Dude, go practice. I'll check up on you." So he would check up on me. Like an hour later, he'd call me and be like, "Did you practice?" So he that level of dedication.
Wow.
And that instilled in me the kind of teacher that I am now, where I'm always available for my students to ask questions, email me. One of my 9-year-olds texted me last night before her lesson. I don't understand this, so I recorded something for her and sent it to her. So, you know, that's the kind of, you know, teacher that I am because of them.
That's beautiful. You know, I can feel your passion and excitement for teaching, and
I love it. I love it. I love seeing all of my students blossom. I mean, from the very little ones who started off, you know, from, you know, not knowing what a violin was to now playing, you know, little concertos in Suzuki 4 and 5, to my adult students who, you know, who are wonderful. They're, you know, they're professionals. Adult amateur just means you don't pay your bills doing music, but they're incredible players and incredible musicians, and just seeing them blossom and you know, and appreciate the art form further than just as a spectator. They're in it. They're playing concerts and they come to their lessons prepared. It's just a joy to see that, you know.
Right. Yeah. I think, I mean, as a musician, it's such a blessing to have great teachers, but it's another blessing to be able to share the gift of music to other people as teachers. Yeah. So beautiful part of our field, I think.
It's so important. I think it's so important also as a performer to be able to teach. I feel like if you understand something, you should be able to explain it. It's like I always say to a student, what should I do in this passage? Don't show me, use your words. So you can tell they understand when they're able to verbalize how to do something.
Wow.
Or you be the teacher, you be Miss so-and-so, you know, instead of me being Mr. Daniel, I'll be the student, you be Miss, it'll be like Miss L, you know, how do I play this? So that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great insight. Okay, now moving on to the topic of performance. What's your favorite piece to perform? One as a soloist and one as an orchestra player.
Wow, that's you know, it varies. I feel that the piece, it's going to be a very generic answer that everybody says when they're playing a solo. It's the piece that I'm currently performing is my favorite piece. So it could be, you know, depending what I'm playing on that concert. But I feel that one of my favorite pieces to play, I'm going to say two of them that are wonderful, is the Mozart Sinfonia Concertante for violin and viola. And having a conversation with one of my teachers, he and I concluded that that is the best concerto written for the viola, even though it's a duet. It's the best piece written for the viola. And another piece that I love that is completely underrated, it's the Telemann Viola Concerto, which I find absolutely magical. Even though a lot of young violas play it, it's very kind of like the first piece you play that's big. I feel like there's so much in it that when you come back to it as an older player, you learn so much from it, especially when you delve into ornamentation, Baroque bowing, and everything that's performance practice. Oh my God, it's a whole, you realize you know nothing. So those two pieces I would say as in the solo repertoire are my favorite. In the orchestral repertoire, God, there's so much. As a violist, I would say, I mean, I have to say Beethoven's Seventh Symphony.
Really?
It's just, especially that second movement is wow. It's I don't know, it's for me it's just, it's perfect. It's perfection. So any of the symphonies by Beethoven, of course, by Mahler, of course, but that Seventh Symphony, especially that second movement, for me, it has a special place in my heart. It's perhaps the piece that I will never tire of playing and of exploring how to do differently. With different conductors, there's different things that they do. Yeah, it's just such a magical piece.
Now I want to talk about Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, second movement with you. Like outside of this interview, maybe.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to. I mean, I played it many times, and you know, my best memory of it was when I was playing in Germany. I was principal of the Westfalen Orchestra in the summer of 2013, I think, and we played with Krzysztof Penderecki before he passed, and he had a rehearsal conductor who did it before with us before Maestro Penderecki came, Maciej Torek, was a wonderful conductor and pedagogue. So we were all a young orchestra, everybody, young professionals. We were all in our like mid to late 20s. And just the way he worked on it with us, the way the whole orchestra was breathing together, it was, like I've always said, orchestra is just big chamber music. And it was the most incredible feeling when the cellos and the violas played together and the violinist came in. And when he was conducting, he wasn't away from the orchestra. He was so close to us. He was one of us. And that was one of the first times I felt that kind of togetherness in an orchestra. And then with Maestro Penderecki, of course, he knew so much. He was talking about this and that and harmonically analyzing. I mean, the guy was a genius.
Right.
So we were overwhelmed by everything that Mr. Penderecki was saying, but it was brilliant. He was just talking about this and this and this and how everything connects to everything. I mean, it was a lesson in harmony and a rehearsal with Mr. Penderecki. So yeah, so again, that's a special piece in my heart when it comes to the orchestral repertoire.
That's such an interesting story to, hear about. And
it's funny because we all still keep in contact from that festival, that academy, and we'll talk about, Machev and Maestro Penderecki. We still all remember that summer, and we'll still text each other, be like, remember, blah, blah, blah. And then, we're 7 years later, we're all still, such a positively affected by that,
right.
That experience. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing about, orchestra playing or collective music making. Like once it's such a special way to connect with each other, and once you experience that connection, it stays with you forever. It
does. And it's the saddest thing when you play the last concert. You become a part of a family when you have an orchestra like that, and you learn to play together, and then you don't want to go home, right? You just want to always make music with the same people. That's why I feel that those who have a professional orchestra career and they've been playing together for 20, 30 years, it becomes your family. There's one sound. There's no, everybody's a great player. Of course, that's how you don't win an orchestra job if you're a bad player, right? So everybody's a great player, but then the way they play together as one instrument, I think that's just absolutely magical.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about Ensemble 2-on-2. Your experience with Ensemble 2-on-2. What is your favorite memory or favorite moment with Ensemble 2-on-2?
Oh, I have so many. To narrow it down to one. Oh man.
I'll give you two chances.
2 chances. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, in almost 10 years of playing with them. I gotta say, I forget which one of the Mahler symphony, one of Yoon Jae's arrangements that they're all brilliant. And I don't remember which one we did, but I'm trying to think. This is hard. There's just so many. We've played so much repertoire over the past decade. Oh wow, I'd have to go dig into my programs. I'll have to think about one specific one, but I can be general about my experience with
Ensemble. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's just so much. But just my experience with Ensemble 2-on-2, I've always loved how when Yoon Jae gets up on the podium, how we feel his enthusiasm as an orchestra. And even though there's a lot of us, the old ones that we've been there for, a decade, and there's a lot of new younger players, but Yoon Jae's enthusiasm is always, it translates to us so well, and he really does bring the group together. And I feel like with the repertoire that it's his arrangements, that he knows so well, he knows, obviously he basically deconstructed and composed a piece, what I mean? So I would dare say he knows it as well as Mahler does, even though, don't say that, but I think he does. And I feel that we learn so much from that, and he really brings the group together. And there's a lot of rehearsals and this and that, but I think at the concert everything comes together. And just it's hard to say. It's just a beautiful thing. And I find that every Ensemble 2-on-2 concert is different. It's so different, and it's so special. because of some of the work that is put into just producing the concerts, just, everybody does a part in helping with the chairs and with this and that. And then all the work that Yoonjae puts into arranging, into putting everything together. So I feel that everybody feels that. It's that level of commitment that the whole orchestra has. And that's something that not many groups have, especially freelance groups. You kind of just go, you play, you get your check, and you know what I mean? So yeah. I'm glad that this isn't the case with 212. We all hang out afterwards and everybody kind of, it's very close. I like that.
I feel like Yoonjae has such a strong sense of ownership for all of his work,
Yeah,
and that kind of evoke respect from everyone who work with him. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, and we all understand how much work it takes to, again, it's not only put the orchestra together, it's also the arrangement itself. Mm-hmm. And just everything that goes into just getting the piece. It's not just renting. You don't just go to IMSLP or, you rent from from Boozy or something and you put it on no, it's actually deconstructing and knowing everything, so, if something's going on, let's say for some reason the horn player's missing, Yoonjae will be humming the horn part. You know what I mean? It's just having such an idea of what he wants, and and all of us understanding that idea, because it's something else that's hard is not and when you work with different conductors, some really translate their ideas clearly, some don't, and some you play a concert you had no idea what the person wanted. It has happened to me plenty of times where I work with a conductor, I played a concert, you just played, it was fine because everybody had a high level, but the idea wasn't there. But I feel that with Yoonjae and the group, the idea is there. Like, it's very, very clear, and then we all work really hard for that goal. And I think we generally come out with a good outcome. So I think, that's already a win,
That's fantastic. That's great. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to give you a funny question.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So, except violin and the viola, what would be your choice of an instrument?
If I didn't play the violin or the viola, what would be the choice of? Does it have to be a classical instrument or no?
Let's go broad. Let's
broad. Okay. Wow. So if it wasn't the violin or the viola, and I love jazz, like jazz violin, like Stefan Grappelli, I'm a big fan. But taking away those string instruments, what would I have as an instrument? You're gonna think this is funny. Turntables.
What?
Turntables. You know what DJs have? Yeah, I've loved it as a kid. Fun little fact, I used to want to be a DJ when I was like 18, 17, back when dance music, like electronic EDM and all that, was really hot in the early 2000s. I used to want to be a DJ. I did like a couple of mixes on my laptop and stuff. Yeah. So that's one instrument. If I wasn't a classical musician, I would love to have like a full studio with turntables and all that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, why not just go for it? Even.
I've been actually on Amazon browsing decks since it's Black Friday. So I'm thinking, what kind of thing can I buy myself, and then what can I use with my iPad? So I think that may actually come true.
Wow.
I may get myself a turntable.
Yeah, I will cheer for you. I'll be there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, it was so good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to
Bye.
Bye.
Hi. Is it he or she?
The boy.
Oh, it's a boy.
Yes, he's quite large.
He looks like a doll, like actual doll. He's like so fluffy and
yeah.
He's like a doll.
7 kilograms.
Wow. How old is he?
Almost 4.
Wow. Wait, how long do cats live?
Could be 20 years.
Oh, so longer than those dogs.
Some of them. He's fat, so he probably won't last 20 years.
Oh, don't say that. No.
He'll probably last a good amount of years.